America, welcome into the Business Pulse. I'm Chuck Barham, your host. We're brought to you by the Freedom Chamber, online at freedomchamber.net. We have grown big time over the last 2-3 weeks. We've added almost, not going to give a great number here, but an exact number of about 55 new businesses in there, gents. I mean, to me, that's a good increase. And you know what? Most of them saw the Business Pulse because we've been pushing it out through social, and many of them came through that portal. So if you're seeing this, make sure you keep pushing it out because you're helping us grow. And 55 may not seem like a huge number, but to us as a growing organization, that's 55 new connections, 55 new vendors, 55 new Americans that can now connect with other vendors, and other possibilities are endless on that front. So thank you very much. freedomchamber.net is where you can find us. That is the Freedom Chamber at freedomchamber.net. It's Dean Owen, it's Rod Martin, and it's the Business Pulse, and we've got a lot to cover. Rod, I want to dive in real quick into the economic numbers that came out for May. Your thoughts?
Well, the most important number is the employment number. You know, a couple months ago, we beat expectations by threefold. This last month, more than twofold, which tells you that Wall Street's expectations are terrible. It's just ridiculous. And a lot of the commentary you're hearing has resurrected the Phillips curve, for heaven's sake. Didn't we bury the Phillips curve in about 1979? I mean, the idea that somehow job growth is inflationary just boggles the reasonable mind. It's absurd. This is exactly what we need. We need robust jobs growth, which has come from Trump's policies bringing in international investment, $18 trillion recruited so far, and doing things to encourage manufacturing here. We have not had free trade. We have pretended we had free trade, and Donald Trump quit pretending and said, look, Germany doesn't get to tariff us fourfold our tariff on auto imports. India doesn't get to just ban Harley Davidson with 100% tariff. Canada doesn't get to just ban our dairy farmers with a 280% tariff. We're going to do things to level the playing field so that American producers can export to their countries the way they are free to export to ours. So that is happening. And the easiest way to get out of tariffs, if you're in a foreign country, is to build a plant in the United States. And as Dean and I have been saying now for a year, that's what's happening. That's how you're getting this incredible jobs growth. And the economic boom that we have been talking about is in the process of happening. It will come to fruition well before the midterms, I'm convinced.
Dean, your thoughts?
Well, everything that Rod and I has said, I have to agree with, but I want to add one small piece of information. Remember back in the Biden administration where they were constantly overstating job growth by over 1 million?
Every month.
Well, we just found out in March and April, they were underestimated by 93,000 jobs. Now, you can't tell me that you don't need to just take the L out of the BLS numbers, because that's all they are, is BS. It's political, it's politicized, it's rigged. Yeah, they're giving cover to the Fed. But I think our new Fed chairman's going to have something to say about that.
Can't disagree with that. So let's talk about what's happening right now as we're recording this on a Wednesday afternoon. The market, is it correcting itself from these ultimate highs that it's had? Rod, your thoughts?
I think it's of a piece with the rest of what I was saying. I think the market is increasingly diluted by listening to MS Now and CNN. They want to believe that Donald Trump is wrong because honestly, they've invested their entire lives into saying that everything he says is stupid. Whether he personally said it or somebody else did, it absolutely contradicts the conventional narrative. So, the idea that we don't actually need to be in a hurry to open the Strait of Hormuz. most of the people on Wall Street haven't even had that thought, much less considered it. The idea that you have all these oil tankers and LNG tankers steaming to the Gulf of America to get into long-term supply contracts from America instead of the Middle East, and what that does to job growth here, what that does to asset growth here is just remarkable and unprecedented, and they don't seem to know how to process it. So they're falling back on idiocy like the Phillips curve. And honestly, the Wall Street Journal is never going to use that term, but they're as bad as the rest. They're part of the problem because they have been so committed to their TDS that they simply will not see what is plainly before their face. The economy is hitting on all cylinders, even so much so that with renewed strikes in Iran, with the blockade fully in force, we're still seeing oil come down, not go up. We were supposed to have, if you'll recall, $150 a barrel, $200 a barrel. No, we're sitting at 89 and dropping. So, everything that we have been told to expect is wrong. And the president was right.
We keep telling everyone, stop listening to the idiots. That you should not listen to people who projected Hillary Clinton was going to win in 16 by 12 points. Now, everybody who did that, you just need to shut them up. Just quit listening. They destroyed their own credibility. And there's just so much filth news that you just got to realize that that's how the enemy plays. And while it's one of the ways the enemy uses to cause confusion.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about confusion. Let's talk about the other side of the fence. Let's talk about Los Angeles. Everybody's saying the election was stolen. Is that the correct words to use, or did they just play by the rules that they've been setting up for the last 15 to 20 years, and that's how things happened, and Spencer did not get the second place nod with all the mail-in ballots? Dean, your thoughts on that? Because I truly believe this is going to be a big moment in America's election cycle as we head into the midterms on the investigation that are happening currently in Los Angeles with homeless people being paid to vote, mail-in fraud everywhere. Dean, your thoughts?
Well, the system is rigged. There's no doubt about it. So it was set up to allow and perpetuate stealing. 43 million votes came in. They all went to somebody. Pratt got none of them. 43 million homeless people. Do the math. The odds of a batch coming in and him not getting any votes it's about like you're going to get hit by lightning 3 times in the same space when you're inside your house. The odds are just it's not happening. So everyone sees it. Now my question is, what goes forward? The Supreme Court justices have to see this, and they have to know that this is a travesty and a fundamental threat to democracy and our way of life. Then what can they do? That's one question, because this is a mayor's race, so they don't have federal jurisdiction over it. But if they pass the laws that I think they're going to, which require signatures and voter ID and proof of citizenship, they're not going to run 2 different election systems. They're going to make the states conform to the federal system. It's too expensive and too offhanded to have 2 different systems running. And, we've seen tried where some states, municipalities will let illegal aliens vote. And they break that into law. And we all know that is done for nefarious reasons.
Rod just hit the nail on the head. San Francisco. Say that again, Rod.
Said, including San Francisco.
Yes.
Which has gone to extreme lengths to make sure that illegal aliens can vote. How does that make sense? In what possible world does it make sense for non-citizens to be voting in an American election? You don't get to do that anywhere else in the world. That's just silly. But I think this is a breaking point. I think this is bringing it home to countless Americans across the country just how broken the system is. And more to the point, that this happens anytime the Democrats completely control a jurisdiction. We didn't see this with Steve Hilton as much. Steve comfortably got in the runoff or got in the general election. Makes no difference. It's kind of the same thing out there. Again, because California has rigged the system. To ask for a voter ID is a criminal offense. Any reasonable safeguard violates the law. And of course, on top of that, you have this jungle primary where everybody from all parties competes in an overwhelmingly blue state, which means that in the general election, your only two choices are usually two Democrats. That's just designed to disenfranchise the 40% of California's population that is Republican and anybody in the middle who might be swayed by an argument. If you never have the argument, they can't be swayed. So I think people are seeing it. I think they are aware who's doing it. I don't think that's mistakable. And then you have U.S. attorneys actually looking into the fraud. You have James O'Keefe providing proof right and left of actual illegal voting of homeless people, bribing them for their votes, all kinds of crazy things. People registered to vacant lots. The whole shebang is just as corrupt as it can be. But Dean's first argument is the key. Statistically, this outcome is impossible. The third place candidate doesn't just get all the votes in the mail-in ballot drops, all of them. I mean, Karen Bass won, and she isn't getting much of any of these votes. And somehow you actually have ballot drops where Spencer Pratt got basically zero. This does not happen. This is mathematically impossible, and that would be good evidence in any court of law.
And that's the thing that amazes me. Every now and then I'll flip over, watch what CNN's saying, what, MSNBC is saying, and they'll just spout it out. There's no voter fraud. Well, then you go and see what James O'Keefe has put out on OMG Media, and it's right there in front of you. It shows the homeless person talking about they gave me $2 to sign me up to do this mail-in ballot. I didn't lick the stamp, didn't put anything on it. They just gave me the $2, and they physically show it happening. How can Americans just stand by and watch this happen? That's the thing that boggles my mind, is you have homeless people that are not voting or in the elections, but are voting. You have, as you said, vacant land with 126 registered voters there that are voting. You have people that are not even legal in our country voting for our elected officials. When do the American people that are tired of being bent over with no lube, paying taxes out the what, when do they just get fed up and say, enough? I mean, what gets to that point?
I think the biggest problem we have
point
is that they don't get an opportunity to, if they live in a state controlled by Democrats, because the Democrats make sure that their votes don't count. So the only people whose votes do count are people who live in red states or purple states, and the purple states are only some of the time. This is the thing. And Reagan used to talk about this with regard to decolonization in Africa. All these countries voted in communist or socialist parties, but I repeat myself. And Reagan said, and of course, the principle is we want to deracialize all the elections in these African former colonies. We want one man, one vote. And Reagan said, yeah, but if you bring in the communists, it's one man, one vote, one time. And that's what we're seeing in LA.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a banana republic is what you've got going on. And I hope, I pray that it's a watershed moment for the United States of America and its voting public, people that are here legally, that they find the voter fraud and they start to unwind a lot of this as we head into the 2026 election, and more importantly, into the 2028 election, and the more local elections that happen across America, because that's where all the local decisions are made. And that's where a lot of people need to wake up and pay attention. But I'll get off my soapbox, and we'll switch topics to another thing that's been all over. Go ahead, Dean. Go ahead, bud.
There is a silver lining. If there is ever an excuse, if there has ever been an excuse in the history of mankind to make sure your midterm elections are secure and righteous and honest and honorable, the proof is right in front of us, and it cannot be denied.
Yeah.
So I've got to think that between now and November, there's going to be some movement, and it'll be in the positive direction. I can't help but ask the question: was some of this set up to allow them to do what they're going to do, so that we would have the justification for a serious crackdown on the fraud? I have hope that that's what's eventually that will happen. How painful does it have to get before we move? I don't know. That I don't have the answer to. But
Well, I
will
think
happen.
burning down whole neighborhoods and people that are now looking for homes and can't rebuild, I think that's a pretty good start right there on how bad it needs to get. And having illegals vote in our elections. And gosh darn it, we just need voter ID. Let's pass the act, Congress. Let's get off let's get things moving in Congress. Can we do that? I'm going to shift gears to the thing that's been all over the news in my news feed is the Carmelo Anthony trial. How did we get here to where a young man's life is taken by another young man, but nobody wants to be held accountable for the young man's actions that took the life of the other young man? And you notice I didn't mention race in this at all because race shouldn't come into play in this. Rod, as a man that's been around a while, I've been around a while. Gene, you've been around a while. Back in the 70s and 80s, I don't remember a lot of the whole pitting the races against each other. I predominantly went to we were a 60-40 split, 60% black, 40% white populated high school. Never had any of these problems, no issues. But after 2012, things changed. And I think that's kind of where I put my thumb on it. Your thoughts on that, Rod?
Yeah, I agree. I grew up in South Arkansas, and in Arkadelphia, we were about 40% black, about 60% white, and we all got along. I mean, you had a certain amount of people, sitting with their little group in the lunchroom.
Sure.
But everybody played football together. Everybody played in the band together. Everybody was just people. And it was the adults who had issues. They had grown up under segregation and they were still a little flighty about things, but everybody was bending over backward to live out what Martin Luther King said in his I Have a Dream speech, that we would judge you by the content of your character and not the color of your skin. That wasn't always done perfectly, and I can certainly give you examples, but the failures were more in the direction of overcorrecting than of actually trying to be racist. Obama changed all of that. And of course, Obama did that with great deliberation, partly because he was personally educated by one of the founding fathers of critical theory. And of course, he worked for Alinsky's organization. Now, Hillary worked for Alinsky and is reported to be his lover. But a little later, after he died, Barack Obama went to work for the same organization. He cut his teeth teaching Alinskyite community organizing, which is all about identity politics. It's all about critical race theory. It's all about division. Because if you can divide enough people into enough smaller and smaller groups and define all those as oppressed, then you can point at the people you want to take out, call them the oppressors, and create a majority out of nothing. This is all cynical, political, in exactly the same way that the Southern planters used Jim Crow in the latter part of the 19th century to divide the poor whites from the poor blacks and keep the populist movement from spreading to the South. The Democrats have been playing this game since basically the Civil War. They haven't changed, and you can tell they don't care about race per se, because they'll switch which race they're for and which race they're against on cue, whatever perpetuates Democrat control. So if you've gone that way, yes, everything becomes racial, and no one is ever accountable for anything if they fall within a defined oppressed class. And if you're in a defined oppressor class, you can do no right and you cannot repent. That is the essence of critical theory, and that is the position of the Democrat Party.
Yeah, we don't have a race problem in America. And I'm not going to say there are no racists of any color, because there's always a few idiots around. But we don't have that problem in America. We've grown past that. for a lot of years. It's been 50 years since we've gone past that. But in order to create the illusion, you have people who on the left sending money to buying KKK hoods. That's a real thing. They have to create the illusion that there's a race problem. There's not. You know, there's good and bad people on all sides and all colors. But, you know, the content of character is not color of skin. And we all
I'll
know
give you a
that.
perfect example, Dean and Rod. Today in Grant Park in the city of Chicago, a 7-foot cross was found burning in Grant Park. Now, you tell me, how in the world does somebody carry a 7-foot cross into Grant Park, which is right in the hub of the city, and light it on fire? That's just gaslighting to its nth
Yeah, of
degree,
course it
no
is.
pun intended.
It is. And look, the most famous white supremacist event of our time is the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. And the Southern Poverty Law Center is under indictment right
Yes.
now for having funded it, put it together. It was entirely a false flag. It was entirely gaslighting so that they could raise more money to fight racism. This is the joke. It is a self-perpetuating scam. They create the racism that they fight, and then they go harvest donations from Fortune 500 boardrooms that are too dumb to figure it out. And this federal indictment should put a stop to that. By the way, if you see the superseding indictment they filed, it is 20 pages of just horror show.
Yes.
You can't believe all the stuff the SPLC did. And that is one of the core institutions of the Democrat coalition.
I know this is off topic on the Business Pulse, but it all feeds itself into where we're at as an American society, which can either help create business or hurt creations of businesses. And we've got to get past this. And Mike, our
Yes.
executive producer in post-production, I want you to put up Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals. And I want everybody watching this to get to know this is the playbook that Rod and Dean were talking about. This is the playbook that Obama activated when he became president. This is where you've seen your divisions come from. I've said it for years. Everything that happens in America on the bad side of the fence stems out of Chicago. That is the snake's head. And it always has been, it always will be. And until we can get past it, we're going to be in this death spiral of just going after each other while the people that are putting us up against each other are laughing and making money off of it.
Yeah.
Such as the poverty. I mean, all of that. It's just so frustrating to me as a guy that's got an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I cannot leave the world the way it is now. So I'm sorry we diverted a little bit from business talk today, but let's just get down to it. Rod, where can people find you at, sir?
rodmartin.org. Everyone needs to come to rodmartin.org, where we do daily geopolitical analysis. Fox Business Calls, absolutely phenomenal. Tens of thousands of subscribers for our daily long form content, hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. There's a reason. So come to rodmartin.org.
And Mr. Owen.
OwenCPA.com. That's OWENCPA.com. Get online, connect with my team. Let's have a conversation, which is always free, and figure out a way to disinherit the government and not your kids.
And I apologize to those that tuned in right when I was on my soapbox today, but man, I'm just fired up about the way things are happening in America right now. I'm happy with a lot of things, but man, these last 2 days with the LA voting scandal, I'm going to call it a scandal. That's what it is. And just downright cheating. And what happened in the Carmelo Anthony and the aftermath of that is just, this is not the America that we are. And I want us to get really thinking about as we turn 250 years old, coming up in a couple weeks, that we need to do better, be better, and communicate more with each other face to face instead of being in front of our keyboards all the time. You can find us online at freedomchamber.net. We're helping America's businesses grow. Like I said, we added 55 over the course of the last 10 days. That's a big jump for us, and we continue to do that. We hope to have you with us. Share this with people that you know that own businesses, and we hope to have you back in here inside the Business Pulse with us next week. Thanks for watching.
The American dream, full of grit, determination, and unthinkable achievements. Building and owning your own business is a monumental task. A place to find guidance, resources, and connections doesn't exist.
Until now. The Freedom Chamber.
A dynamic and innovative organization established to empower businesses across all sectors. The Freedom Chamber. Find us online at freedomchamber.net. Join us today.